Now that Smite damage has been announced, the question is, can and should you prepare for it? And I think the answer is yes. So in this video, I'll talk through all the things that I'll be doing and that possibly you should be doing in order to prepare for this new style of damage. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms. And with the announcement of the new legendary infantry hero that everybody's getting for free, there now is a question of, hey, wait a minute, should I move in on this new style of damage that is Smite damage? Now, Smite damage makes it so that instead of having sort of skill damage modified by skill damage modifiers, your skill damage dealt is now modified by normal attack damage modifiers. So this is kind of exciting, but there is a lot that you can do to enhance your normal attack damage dealt. And although we've only seen the information about one legendary commander who's going to be doing Smite style damage, there are several things that could happen here. One is that we'll immediately get multiple Smite commanders for multiple troop types. In fact, for the next year, it is entirely possible for the whole next year we get Smite damage. Now look, that would in some ways not surprise me. I originally would have guessed that because infantry all throughout history have done shields, that infantry would have been a shielding-based commander, that archers, because they have been all about skill damage since the beginning of time, would have been about the wedge formation and skill damage dealt. I would have kind of assumed that cavalry would have been that normal attack damage formation. I mean, they had Attila Takeda, you know? It's got a history of being all about normal attack damage boosts. I would have expected, again, for this to be a cavalry-specific thing. But it's not. It's on infantry. And I really do think that possibly for the next whole year, we'll be seeing Smite commanders. So if that's true, let's jump into the preparations, shall we? Okay, here we are in game, and the very first preparation that everyone should be making is that if you are in a position to start to prioritize some arch formation armaments, it would be worth doing so. I personally am going to start opening entirely arch crates. It is what it is. We're going to talk more about this in just a minute, but arch could be the jam for a long time. Now, generally, I would say, oh, you know, arch is not as good for open field, but here's the thing. If it enhances your smite damage, well, all of a sudden, it's very good in the open field. It's, in fact, better than skill damage in the open field, if you think about it, because now you're not only boosting your normal attack counterattack, but you're also boosting your skill damage dealt. It's just now we call it smite instead of skill. All right, so arch formation suddenly becomes really powerful. Now, in terms of what you do to prepare, my strong recommendation is that you make 3 presets. I've only done 1 so far, but you should make a preset with, hey, here is my best arch formation armaments for infantry, archers, and cavalry. That would be my strong recommendation. Make 3 sets, make a preset, and go in and lock all of the armaments. And even if you lock them, man, you spend so much time deleting stinking armaments in this game that I saw a bunch that were for my echelon formation. I didn't even realize that although they were locked, they were a part of my Trajan setup for Canyon. So now I have some really crappy armaments on my Trajan for Canyon. And I'm like, oh my God. Not that Canyon matters all that much, but what I'm trying to say is, in the very least, lock up your arch armaments so that you don't accidentally delete your best ones, and start to build those sets of, hey, here's the best of what I've got. Now, things get even more interesting if you are a rally lead or a garrison captain, because now I need to make our way over to the codex. We jump into the codex, and there are legendary inscriptions, and there are also non-legendary inscriptions that could be really, really good on Smite commanders. So if we start with the legendary inscriptions, first up, destructive, 3.5% extra normal attack damage. When you launch a normal attack, you have a 10% chance to spend 100 rage and increase the damage of your next attack. This is good, not insane for smite damage, but there's so much instant proc smite damage potentially as well that this could actually be really busted. I think this is going to be pretty good. Okay, this is the one that is available from KVK as an inscription. It is maybe better than Wedge Formation Hunter. Not if you're rallying, but I mean, I don't think we're going to get a rally right away for smite damage, but I guess anything's possible. We'll see. Moving on from the scroll slot, we need to talk about the flag slot. Now this, I mean, look, if you're a big spender, you could gain access to Invincible. Invincible increases skill damage resistance, but their troop deals 3% extra normal attack damage up to 12% for every 20% of the units the target has lost. I mean, this will be insane for garrisoning. Insane. Oh my god, this is going to be mental. So, yeah, for open field, I don't know that this is crazy, but for garrison, it's going to be nutty. So, arch formation is just looking really wicked. And if you are so lucky as to get straight to the point, oh my god. I mean, this is just mental. It's so good. Also, over here, Fearless is so good if you get your hands on these. But these, I think, are only available now from loot crates. So I don't know of any other way to get them. Now, there are other inscriptions that boost your normal attack damage, which suddenly become really, really insane. So we can look through all of these. Here it is. War Hunger. You know, offhand, I wouldn't have said War Hunger is very good, but now since normal attack damage will boost your smite damage, Arch Formation with War Hunger, if you know, don't have these other crazy legendary inscriptions, is going to be pretty dang good. Is it necessarily better, however, than Health? I actually am not sure that it is. I think I might actually prefer 3.5% Health to 1.5% extra normal attack damage. Because think about it this way, okay? On a smite-based commander, normal attack damage boosts are almost like an all damage boost. I mean, as long as both commanders you do smite damage, it's kind of like an all damage boost. So some of these other ones are actually better. Like, I think Fit is slightly better. Although if you want damage, then like, look, hey, look. This is going to be really crazy, okay? So in addition to Armaments, which is the main preparation everybody should start making and start locking your best arch armaments for each troop type. Specifically infantry in the short term, but I really think to prevent yourself from accidentally selling one, F's in the chat for Chisgule's Trajan March, I would strongly recommend you lock them all up, okay? But there's more. One consideration then becomes equipment. Now, equipment is in an interesting place. I covered this in a separate video, how there are big changes coming to the equipment system. I'll have a card up in the top and in the end screen for information about that. I strongly recommend that you watch it after this video. But the next best thing that you can go and do is actually start saving up the patterns, if you don't already have them, to potentially go make a Greatest Glory. So the advantage of a Greatest Glory is that on a smite-based commander, this is effectively an all damage boost of 5%. Which is pretty good. Now, the funny thing is that I think you actually get a better damage boost from Ring and Horn. Like, what I'm trying to say is that I think Ring of Doom averages out to like, I want to say like a 5.5 or 5.2% damage boost. I forget what the number is, but it's more than 5%. It's just not as consistent as your Greatest Glory would be. And the funny thing is that a Horn of Fury generates Rage. Well, hey, you still need Rage on smite-based commanders, and Rage means more uses of your active skill. I think you might get more damage from a Horn of Fury. I don't actually know what percentage damage boost you get from a Horn of Fury. If you have done this math and want to explain it in depth, definitely let me know in the comments or shoot me a message on Discord. I would be very curious for that. So the alternative is a Greatest Glory. Now, if you're rallying or garrisoning, then I think the Greatest Glory suddenly becomes really interesting as an option, because you can set up to get swarmed, in which case a Greatest Glory is really good, and if you're not getting swarmed, a Greatest Glory is still really good. So that's where I think for rally and garrison, Greatest Glory suddenly sees elevated value over something like a Horn of Fury, because the Horn of Fury loses its value when you're getting swarmed, and not only does this fully work when you're not getting swarmed on a Smite commander, but also when you are getting swarmed, you're actually just popping off with value. So I think that having a Greatest Glory in your arsenal, particularly for the troop type of your choosing, suddenly is just way more exciting than it was before. So that is something that I personally will be looking into, but I wouldn't go crafting it just yet. I would wait until we see the full update to the equipment system, and then you can know for sure, okay, do we go for it or not? This also means, by the way, that from like a garrison standpoint, assuming that we get some Smite commanders for rallies and garrisons and all the things over the next year or two, who knows, the Vengeance loses some amount of its value. And it loses some amount of its value because, comparatively, a ring is good in rally and garrison situations where it's just the rally, or if you're getting swarmed. Whereas this really only excels if you're getting swarmed. And this does not enhance your smite damage. It's not boosting your normal attack. So I think these are some pretty good preparations for the sort of new stuff coming into the game. And in terms of prioritization between your armaments and your equipment, this is where things get a little bit weird, okay? There are events that you can go spend gems on, or spend money on. And I still think at this time, for me, the biggest gains from spending are going to come from armaments, not from equipment. Now, we'll see what the new equipment setup looks like. I'm still saving materials. I'm saving hammers, okay? I'm going to have plenty of gems to go gem stuff. But what I'm trying to say is that, you know, a lot of the efficiency in this game is just choosing where to spend, if you are spending, or where to allocate currency, even if you're free to play. And I think that if you're really serious about moving in on the sort of normal attack damage boosts that will help smite damage, that armaments will initially be your sort of biggest gain in stats. And the reason is actually pretty easy to understand. The reason is that all you have to do at the start is like get an armament that has, you know, 2 stats relevant for your troop type instead of 3. And like all of a sudden you've got a big gain, right? So this is my best arch formation armaments. Okay, so here we go, right? So like my best arch armament right now is 1.2 attack, 1.2 defense, 0.5 all damage. That's actually pretty good. 3 stats for the same troop type. This is pretty terrible though. I have like literally nothing for this slot. So like, you know, you start by getting incremental gains to stats, and like I get a huge boost when I get, a double stat armament and then a triple stat armament. I will say this though about armament investing versus equipment investing at this time, which is that we don't actually know for sure that we're going to see cavalry with smite effects. We don't know if we're going to see archers with smite effects. So until they actually show up, like you don't actually know that it's a good longer term invest compared to your other options. So on the one hand, I'm saying, hey, armaments are probably going to be some pretty big gains, but the advantage of wedge formation right now is that, hey, if you get infantry, archers, or cavalry, you know you're going to use it in the open field. Whereas here is like, so how many of these marches am I going to make with arch formation exactly? Am I over-indexing by going in on the armaments? Maybe I am, right? So you're going to have to make some choices here. I'm going to lean toward investing in armaments, and that hopefully in the future, we'll see more troop types that take advantage of this sort of armament. But this also starts to sort of bring back the question of, all right, so how many marches do you use in the open field? And will you be using the new commanders in the open field? We can only assume that multiple of them will have smite, but we know for sure one of them will. So to be determined. These are the preparations I'm making. These are the considerations. I'm personally moving in on armaments before I move in on equipment. Not, you know, we'll work on equipment at the same time, but you get the idea. If you found the vid helpful, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. If you want to see the changes to the equipment system that were proposed by the developers, I had the pleasure of being on a special council of players that got to advise on it. Card will be in the end screen for that in just a second. I hope you'll check it out. Oh, and if for some reason you didn't see my guide on the new commander that has smite damage, card will be in the end screen for that as well.